And we're live. Hang on, folks. Just checking my camera. It's got knocked a wee bit because the wife's been doing a bit of decorating. Thank you very much. I'm saying to her, we've got a lovely, nice, fresh white roof tonight, which will help with the reflection of my lovely shiny dome. So thank you very much for joining me. If there's anybody out there tonight, it's Science Fiction Friday. We were off the last couple of weeks just because of a wee bit of health issues. Excuse me, and just working away at our Tiger video, which is now up online. So we thought we'd pop back on anyway, and we've been going well with the June Book Club. For anybody who's interested, where we do a June Book Club twice a week on a Thursday and a Sunday. That's my doggies going off in the corner there. And yeah, that's going well. We're up to about chapter 18 at the moment, so a few more chapters, 4 more chapters till we reach the end of book 1 of June. So in about 2 weeks' time, we'll be starting book 2 of June, which is not the second June novel, of course, but is in fact part 2 of the first June novel. So it's Muad'Dib, I suppose. So the book club has been going quite well, and we've been getting some nice interactions with it, and it's become it's good fun. So if anybody's out there, say hello, and in the wee text live chat there. And I thought we'd just have a wee sort of keeping on the June stuff a wee bit. I think we had a wee bit of sad news this week regarding the actor William Hurt, who passed away. His dates, I think he was born in 1950, so quite sad to hear that he's passed away. And I was having a wee think about him in terms of course, William Hurt is one of, hello Holly, is one of 3 actors really to have played Paul Atreides on, or sorry, not Paul Atreides, apologies, to have played Leto Atreides on screen. There's Bojack Harkness saying, hey there, hey Bojack, thanks for joining us. And I was having a bit of a consideration as to what I thought about William Hurt's performance as Leto Atreides. Thanks, love. Excuse me. And I obviously with some issues in terms of casting of June, I actually thought he's the one Leto Atreides that we've got to see the most of on the screen. And I think we had a bit of a natter with a couple of people about William Hurt, actually. But I actually think in terms of his acting skills, I thought he was a fantastic Leto Atreides. And I think that the comment that I'd made in regards to this is that there's aspects to the way the characters played in Frank Herbert's June, the TV series, the TV miniseries, however we refer to it. There's Brad saying, morning, Brad. How's it going? Hope you're keeping well, sir. Yeah, it's about 9 o'clock here, as you know. So the sun's just set here. We're getting our days a bit longer, and it's been a beautiful day here. So it's absolutely gorgeous. Been out for a wee drive. Lovely blue skies, wonderful for your mood, aren't they? There's Babs saying, evening, y'all. Evening, Babs. Thanks for joining us. We're just getting started, folks. So yeah, as I said, all things science fiction. If you've got any wee comments or questions for me tonight, fire away down in the live chat. It keeps it going a wee bit. It's always good to help the flow. But as I said, we're just having a wee think about William Hurt. Would I have the I suppose the mini series is here. It is indeed. Let me see. Oh, I'm always doing this. Something just out of reach. But there we go. I'm going to send stuff flying here in a second. Oh, not enough shelving in this place. And obviously, you know, I picked up another copy of this recently from the June TV series. Frank Herbert's June, Emmy Award-winning, digitally remastered, impressive. So it's been remastered. And I haven't actually had a chance to have a look at this. But, I mean, really in terms of... I picked this up a long time ago, I suppose. There we go. And, of course, it's got William Hurt right across the top. And I thought his performance in this was exceptionally good. And it's quite a wee... The way Frank Herbert uses colour in his books, by the way, I thought was very interesting in the way that the TV series managed to use colour within it. But yeah, I suppose it says name at the top of it there, really, isn't it? But what I'd thought that he brought to the party, if you see what I mean, is that I thought he actually made Leto Atreides, how do I put it, a more interesting, more believable, more human character, more sympathetic, I think. And I, for that reason, because certainly going through the Dune book club at the minute, I've certainly come to the conclusion I'm not very sympathetic towards Leto Atreides at all. I find him to be a bit of a goon, to be honest. And I think how, I suppose how he's presented in terms of the propaganda at the start of each chapter in Dune is one thing. How the action lays out in the book, how it's presented on the screen is another. But within his character, I think you got a real sense of the myth that's created about the man and the reality, if you see what I mean. So yeah, I just very sad to hear that he's passed away. As always, when we lose someone, I think, excuse me. And I was just having a wee think about it and thought, what an excellent Leto Atreides he really was, and that in terms of what he brought to the character, he brought more to the character. I think he and he gave it a realism. I think it was very true to Frank's ideas of Leto, but it just made him seem more real to me. I thought it was a very well fleshed out performance, and there are some little things within the mini series. There's particularly one scene that has an awful lot of reference, and it's not in the book, and you won't find it in the other versions of Dune, but it's a very much a House of Atreus moment, and it's William Hurt there in that moment, I suppose, in that scene, and you also get a real sense of how sinister and manipulative Leto is. There's Bab saying, I started listening to Tiger last night. At the least one can admire Gully Foyle for getting shite done. Well, Gully Foyle's a hard character to present, maybe to a modern audience, I'd have to say. He is admirable in many ways. In many ways, he's an absolute shit, and a complete monster. He's a killer. Well, I suppose the interesting thing about Gully Foyle is that he's none of these things to begin with. But you have, for getting shit done, that's Gully's your man. Wow, does he do it? It's such an impressive story. Are you listening to Tiger the audiobook, Babs? As opposed to my video. But yeah, he's not a sympathetic. Well, he is. He's a tricky one, as I said. If you're trying to sell Gully Foyle to a modern audience, it can be a bit tricky. He's a murderer. He's a rapist, a control freak, and he's really presented as almost something bestial, to begin with. But and in some ways is I suppose, how could we put it? The type, I suppose, the ignoble savage, if you like, in that sense. Is he a better man at the beginning than he is at the end? I don't know. It's one of those things. Excellent. I wonder who does that. Tiger. I was doing a wee bit of a read up on some stuff there, and I think there is. I think is it the BBC had done a production a few years back, which I haven't heard. That's the wrong thing to do. Let's have a wee quick check here, Babs. Let's see. Because I was pretty sure I had, or maybe it was something else. Maybe it was The Demolished Man. Here we go. Adaptations. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, I mean, by the way, guys, if you have a look at my Tiger video, clearly there's an awful lot of art in there from Howard Chaykin. And it comes from, I'll just read this blurb. It's the Howard Chaykin and Byron Price graphic novel of Tiger. It's online for free if you can go find it. It's under the name of Stars My Destination. And this was just off the Stars My Destination Wikipedia page. This graphic adaptation, the first half of which was published in 1979 by Baronet Publishing, and the complete version delayed due to Baronet's bankruptcy after releasing the original version by Marvel Entertainment's Epic imprint in 1992. So it's a pretty hard to get, or in terms of the original book. In terms of a graphic novel, I mean, I tried to get a little bit of movement in it with some of the pictures. Excuse me. And I think it's exceptional. Um, though I'm really really sad to say, if you have a look at the video and you look at some of the stuff to do with the graphic novel, if you check out the Vorga, there's a misprint. The Vorga's got the wrong serial number, and it's kind of an important thing because it's actually meant, if you look at it carefully, T1339 is meant to be Tiger. But here it is here, folks. This is, I must check this out myself, Babs. I don't know if this is the one you're listening to, but there's a dramatization titled Tiger Tiger broadcast on BBC Radio 4 on September the 14th, 1991, repeated in 1993, scripted by Ivan Benbrook and directed by Andy Jordan. It has Alan Armstrong playing Gully Foyle, which is an excellent choice, I would say. And it has Miranda Richardson as Olivia, and Siobhan Redmond was Robin Wednesday, and Leslie Manville as Jezebella McQueen. There we go. So there is I wonder if that's the one you're listening to. Babs, Alan Armstrong's pretty good, I have to say. But yeah, Tiger Tiger, folks. As I said, our most recent video, also Tiger Tiger in the UK mainly, but The Stars My Destination, as it's known, is one of the great novels of science fiction. Oh, it's not a radio drama audiobook. Excellent. Well, I hope you enjoy, Babs. I hope it's well done. It's a cracker. I'd really like to listen to it myself. It's one that I'd love to do myself. I suppose it's a pity it's not in public domain. I quite enjoyed. I didn't put too much of myself into it, I suppose, but I quite enjoyed reading some of the stuff from Tiger Tiger. But in particular, I've always been impressed by what I call the rage speech. Just that no, and I was recording it when my family were sleeping, so I was trying to kind of get the rage and build up the voice while trying to keep it really quiet. So, but I must check that out. Actually, I wouldn't mind listening to that. But so the BBC, up to a certain point, do audio dramas really really well. Enjoyed that short video, Sloan. Thanks. You're more than welcome, colleges. As I said, folks, it was one of those things that I'm a wee bit old school maybe in some of my science fiction. I'm reasonably modern in it, I suppose, as well. But I was just chatting to various people online. Just wow, you don't know this one? This is this is right up there. It's a cracker. Absolute wonderful book. I think I've read it 3 times maybe now. And it's a book that I'll put it back on my shelf and very happily pick up and read again next year. No bother at all, and I know what happens. Won't spoil it for me. It's got a pace to it that I like fast paced novels. And it is one of those, we use these kind of hyperbolic phrases like it's high octane, it's very hyperbolic, it's full on, and it really is. I like books. I think I've said hopefully that we're going to get the culture real soon. I'm thinking about my next video, and I'm open to some suggestions, by the way. But I'm trying to run with an A to Z, if you like. So we've done an A and we've done a B, we've done a boy and his dog, and we've done B for Bester with after all of our June stuff, and we've done a wee sort of short history of science, a very brief history of science fiction. For a bit of fun, and we've done a wee video on the definitions of science fiction. So the idea is really not knowing too much what to do with the station, that we'd start heading through a kind of A to Z. And I did a wee A to Z video roughly where I thought I'd pick out 3 or 4 things from each letter, throw that down, and at the end of doing that video, I realized that I could produce probably 20 such videos. Of just populating A to Zs with amazing science fiction stuff, and not all of it has to be super literary quality. A lot of it's just there's a lot of good pulp fiction out there. I would say this, guys, and I'll have a wee look at your comments. Tiger Tiger is one of those books that it's a literary book, but it feels pulpy. If you know what I mean, it has that kind of sense to it. You're reading a good old fashioned revenge adventure story, but it feels different. And it almost feels a bit like a James Bond novel in some ways. And I don't know if you like Alexander Dumas, and I love Alexander Dumas. I'm a big fan. Certainly in terms of the Count of Monte Cristo, if you want, if you're going to read any Alexander Dumas, what have we got there? There we are. Oh, that's the Three Musketeers. Sorry, all-time absolute. Look at the size of that. You know, isn't that you want your value for money? What? Oh goodness, absolute quality. You know, I mean, you can't beat literature like this. Chunky books as well, but unfortunately, Dumas is not great for piling in. If you see what I mean, it's a well thought out, well considered novel. And I think the Count of Monte Cristo. Oh dear, bear with me a wee second. I think it's here somewhere. Actually, I thought I spotted it earlier, and it's quite a chunky book as well. Goodness gracious! Funnily enough, the Count of Monte Cristo that I own. I used to buy books for my mum before she passed away, and the Count of Monte Cristo was the last book I bought her. Before she passed away, I bought her the Phantom of the Opera and the Count of Monte Cristo. And so she never read it, but I have her copy here, and I haven't got through it myself. But in terms of certainly the Alexander Dumas stuff, there's these Alexander Salkind films from I think the 70s, 60s and 70s maybe, which are just amazing, and I love them to bits. You know, Babs is saying the playlist is available on our Holmes channel. Excellent, thank you, Babs. I'll scribble that down. My eyesight's starting to get a bit funny, so I love audio books and audio dramas, and you know, and they're often not done that well, I have to say. Playlist Anna Holmes channel. Thank you. I'll write that down. I must see if we can figure it. There was a very recent. Sorry, it's probably not recent at all, but I did catch one of these BBC dramatizations, and I think it's on YouTube. And it was of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? For those who are into or Philip K. Dick and Blade Runner. And I'm pretty sure it was James Purefoy playing Rick Deckard. And I had a listen to that one about a year ago, and I thought if it was on YouTube, I thought it was really good. So the BBC used to do some of these audio dramas pretty well. Audiobooks are as good as the narrator, I suppose, and the quality of the recording, you know. Colleges and Cannibal says, excuse the typo, please. Not to worry at all. Sloan, there's a lot of people. Oh, my seat. There's a lot of people that would spell Sloan with an E. And I suppose it has that. What is it? Isn't it? There's the Sloan set, isn't it? And the Sloan Rangers, as they call them. It comes from, oddly enough, my name's Russell Sloan. So it comes from the two. Was it Russell Square and Sloan Square in London? Yeah, odd places, I suppose. But not to worry. Typos I'm never bothered about typos. Colleges I make plenty of them myself, you know. Brad says, I can't do audiobooks and I get distracted. Books are my thing. I think it's the visual concentration. I won't listen to an audiobook before I've read it, or sorry, until after I've read the book. But in terms of for myself, sometimes it being hard to get certain books in Northern Ireland, but you had access to the radio, so it meant that certain things you could get, I suppose. But it depends. I have a very bad sleep disorder, Brad, so I use them to try and fall asleep too, which is anything better than my own head. Basically, my head doesn't shut down. So in that sense, I find them quite nice, but it depends on them, and some of them are really good. But I'd rather one that I would think was excellent in the way it was read. This is the most recent one I think that I've bought. Was a wee while back, and I'm a big fan of Ian M. Banks's Matter. That's an abridged reading, and it's by Toby Longworth, and it's not sure if it's a BBC. No, it's Hatchet Audio. It's from 2008, actually. Very, very good Matter. And I have, let me see. Bear with me one wee second. Let me see if I've got the right glasses on. What have we got here? Audio. Accession somewhere, don't we? Oh, can we see? Oh, there it is. Lovely. I don't have too much. I'll say something. The age of the internet and things like the Pirate Bay digital downloads, all of this kind of thing. I'm not a person with great financial funds and stuff. Get the odd thing for a birthday present, that kind of thing. But this one, from my own point of view, is it Tim McInerney? Tim McInerney and Amanda Redman. This one's the Odyssey, and I quite like that one. It's a BBC one. Of course, the old Hitchhiker's Guides are great. Peter Kenny reads that's unabridged. Accession, that's excellent, and it's one of my two favorite culture books. I'd say the Accessions. If you're looking for a really, there we go. That phrase, high octane jump in then to the culture. The Accessions, your book, I think. But really, where these things kind of scream gold at you, I suppose, is things like this. This is the best version of Lord of the Rings you'll get. And it's a 13 cassettes, 13 hours. Absolutely. Mine's pretty old. I'm very, very well, as you can see, very well used and cracked. And I've been listening to these throughout my entire adult life and written essays and done all sorts of work to them, and I have them on CD now, I suppose. But it depends on it, and you need a bit. Yeah, it's about having a bit of downtime, and so I think it's just going to sleep's a good time to listen to them, But Bob says, Brad, I feel that I retain the info better with reading over listening. I think, yeah, we all learn differently. We all absorb stuff differently. But it's been an eye opener to me. No pun intended. About how much I've often considered certain things, but how people ingest books, if you like, and it's not just by reading books. There's all sorts of ways to absorb a story, I suppose. But it's I personally here we go. I don't want to reveal too much, but I read on the loo and I read in bed. And I keep books stashed in toilets. Because I find going to the loo boring. Dear, oh dear. But that's a habit from my 2000 AD days. I used to go home from school at about 3:30 in the afternoon, go straight to the shop, pick up my 2000 AD, go straight home and lock the toilet door and go in and read it. Excuse me. Only place you get peace to do so. Branson Babs, yeah, I tend to tune out with audio. I really can't appreciate how other people do it. It's one of those other things, I suppose, talking about how we look at media today. It's very different. Colleges and Cal's, by passing PKD, if Extinction on Netflix is not an adaptation of a PKD story, then we are living in a PKD story. Extinction, I don't think I've seen that. There's one of the things that, in terms of Philip K. Dick, the TV show that came on a while back that I think was produced or something by, I think Bryan Cranston was the person behind it. And an example of a fan. And I looked at some of the stories, and I think I watched the first couple, did a bit of my homework, and found that a bit like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, I suppose, having its title swapped out. And I think the title Blade Runner was something that was purchased, and it was something that belonged to William S. Burroughs, I believe. But just the rights to the title attached to that book. Who's going to go see a film called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? But it seemed that a bunch of the episodes had been rewritten as original kind of sci-fi, and they had taken Philip K. Dick titles and attached them to it. And I'm not too sure how Philip K. Dick is adapted to the screen's a very, very interesting thing. Hang on, I've got something for you. But let's see, what have we got over here? Oh dear, I've got some stuff on Blade Runner, and a couple of I've got quite a lot on Philip K. Dick, actually. I do like my Philip K. Dick. Very good book. Recommend it. Counterfeit Worlds. Philip K. Dick on film. There we go. And when did this come out? Let me see. So yeah, Minority Report, Paycheck, Scanner Darkly, Next, The Unmade Projects. Imposter's a good one if anybody hasn't seen it with Gary Sinise. Total Recall 2070. Confessions Doom Barjo. Confessions of a Crap Artist, that is, isn't it? Screamers, Total Recall. And then there's quite a bit on and Use As Directed, Ubik 78. It's there's stuff that I mean, this is beautiful. Really nice book, full of I'm just going to show you something there. All sorts of we insightful things, and it's I don't know where I picked this up. I've seen things. It's a nice book. It looks like I bought it out of a library, out of their trash bin. But it's by Brian J. Robb, and it's a good one. And I've had this one a long time. Goodness, this is Paul M. Salmon. This is a good chunky book. The Making of Blade Runner: Future Noir. I think that might be a series, actually. Let's have a wee nosy. Labour of Love is for Ridley Scott. No, maybe not. But they're for any Blade Runner fans or Philip K. Dick, well, particularly Philip K. Dick fans, that's your book there. And this is quite insightful. It's a good book to read. I have to say, I do enjoy things like that. Used to quite like the cinema and stuff like that. But yeah, how Philip K. Dick's handled on the screen is really interesting. And if you do think about it, a lot of the big properties, granted, The Android Stream of Electric Sheep's a reasonably, it's not massive novel, but a bunch of these things are coming from short stories. And I'm not even really too sure, I love the short story We Can Remember It For You Wholesale. I think, what a cracking story. And I sometimes think that's how, I don't know if anybody knows how that story ends. It's different from the films, but I'd actually like to see I'd like to see Total Recall done with the proper ending. If you see what I mean. Excuse me. I think it's a very clever story, and yeah. But yeah, PKD is really hard to translate the screen sometimes. I think I must check that out. Extinction. Thank you, colleges. There's Cosette saying, "Hey all, hope that everyone's having a good day." Hi Cosette, thanks for joining us. Cosette, you too. Colin, how rude of me to ignore everyone. Hope you're all well. I often forget to introduce myself sometimes on this thing, but I think somebody at a point wanted to know who I was the other week, and I thought my name was on it. But that's always good to say hello, isn't it? Laughing out loud. I use explanations of astrophysics concepts to fall asleep. I'll say that keep me wide awake and interested. That's my problem. Babs saying, well, y'all gotta go cook my dinner. Have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us, Babs. And hope we'll see you for the book club on Sunday, hopefully. Cosette saying, I listen to the YouTube videos where the computer voice reads Reddit posts. Laughing at, I've never heard of that. Because excuse me. Have a great dinner, Babs says Cosette. I just keep my copies of Viz in the toilet to read, suitable as its toilet humor. Oh. Is Viz still going, Brad? I'm wondering. Probably not, actually. Oh dear, was it somebody bought me a book on? Was it toilet trivia once, and it was a waterproof book for the one of those nice little trivia books, I suppose. And always remember, I suppose one of the good ones I like about trivia is this. It's trivia is a Roman goddess, and her name means kind of three roads, if you like. So if you want a bit of trivia, it's about trivia, and that she's the goddess of hounds, crossroads, and sorcery. There you go. It is still going, yeah. I'm trying to remember. Was it not as good as it was? I suppose from the days of British comics, myself, 2000 AD and Star-Lord as always. But in terms of the funnies, I suppose I'm trying to think. The Beezer would have been kind of one that I would have read. But I read sort of, I kind of grabbed any kind of comic I could, really. That sort of thing, and yeah, not many comic shops or anything like that around when I was young. So if you had a good newsagent and simply what they stock, so Trivia Moonlight says the Morrigan. Yeah, she's a similar goddess, and Hecate, she is her Greek equivalent. So they're all to do with this sorcery crossroads and hounds for all three actually. So there you go, trivia: the Morrigan and Hecate. And Hecate is quite an interesting goddess as well. In terms that I suppose, in terms of kind of she makes up a part of a triumvirate, if you like. But she's a chthonic deity attached to Olympians, if you like. That's a tricky one. I suppose that's kind of to do with how certain religions merge in with how religions change and adapt to suit the needs of their priesthoods and their people, I suppose. That's why dogs get into heaven now, and they didn't about 20 years ago. Bizarro. So yeah, and as I said, if you've got any wee questions or anything at all to do with science fiction, guys, or comments, fire away. I'll happily try and answer anything. Or we were having a wee chat. Somebody was mentioning a couple of somebody's reading a bit of Robert Heinlein the other night, and I was just sort of talking about a bunch of Heinlein books that I have not read, and it's always about finding the time, isn't it, to try and I'm one of these people. I'd like to try and read as much as I can, really, and I tend to vary it a wee bit between science fiction, what I call ancient world stuff, and then what I call difficult stuff, something that's challenging, which can take me anywhere, I suppose, But yeah, one of the other wee things I was going to mention, just in terms of having a wee look at William Hurt and talking about his role as Leto with Treaties in June, and I just thought I'd have a wee quick scan through his filmography, if you like. And it kind of, yeah, we have an interesting little set of films in terms of science fiction with William Hurt. And I think I've seen all of these. One of them's not science fiction. Yeah, I have seen all of these, I think. I've got Altered States downstairs there, and I think that was that apparently his first film, science fiction. We've got Dune, of course. I'll not include a history of violence in terms of science fiction, but I will include it there just as a film that it was in because it's written by the creator of Judge Dredd. We had AI, artificial intelligence, Until the End of the World, which I remember seeing years and years ago. I always thought it was a bit arty, wasn't it? Seemed to be a kind of something similar to Strange Days, maybe, but in terms of memories and dreams, I think, but not. It's not a very noir thing. I think it was kind of like an art house film in Australia, maybe, if I can remember correctly. Haven't seen it since the first time I watched it. Lost in Space, of course, and Dark City. So I thought, in terms of his science fiction chops, as I like to say, he's got a few good ones there. And some pretty good. Dark City's a good film, and I absolutely love A History of Violence. It's I think it's one of the funniest films I've ever seen. Yeah, I'll probably get I think it's hilarious. But I'll probably get. I find things that are funny that other people don't, I suppose. But there we go. So yeah, sad to hear William Hurt passing away. And we were just having a wee chat about the TV series and so on there. And yeah, in terms of audiobooks, audio dramas, some of them are, as we were saying there, some of them are really bad. And there's one in particular. Do you know something? Some of the old time radio shows that you used to be able to get off the Pirate Bay. I have this. It's an old time radio of, and I have no idea. There's no introduction to it. It's the Dunwich Horror, and I can't tell who reads it. And it's a very bad. It's like it's been taken off a phonograph or something, off an old record. Scratchy quality to it. You can hear the reader well. The atmosphere and everything about it seems a wee bit. And there's something about it. It's not a great recording, but there's something about its atmosphere that's absolutely perfect for that story, and it gives you a sense of it's a bit spooky. And sometimes these things are as much as there's a I don't know, there's an appeal to a certain old-fashioned technology and the feel and the ambience that you can get from it, I suppose. Yeah, there we go. Dark City is an excellent film. It is. I went to oddly enough, colleges. I went to see it at the cinema in Liverpool. I think when I was doing my science fiction literature thing over there, and I haven't seen it since. And I don't have a copy. And it's one of those ones that I really remember going, this is quite good, isn't it? I quite like this. And I really just want to watch it again. I must see if it is it on. It's one of those things you kind of think, oh, I don't know. I must have a look and see if it's on a streaming service or not, and I'll check it out again. Love to watch it again. Dark City, that's another thing to write down. Sort of having a wee chat with my wife. We've been looking about TV series to watch and so on and so forth. Things that we both like. And trying to find something a bit science fiction-y, obviously, if I can watch something, I'll maybe do a bit of a video or a commentary on it. As I keep pointing out here, that might be useful. But we've got her just started on Red Dwarf there, which she's never seen, and we've just finished season 3, and she's enjoying it enormously. But I'm trying to pick out all these old sci-fi films, and I've got a good bunch of them downstairs actually. That excuse me. There we go. This is random, but this would be where people know in my life. I've never seen The Secret of Nim, but does anyone know how related it is to the rat utopia experiment? It's to do with rats, isn't it? It was, goodness, was part of that. They used to run comic strips of it in 2000 AD. Would you believe, Brad? A long, long time ago. I don't think that the story itself, though, has too much to do with that. Well, we watched it not that long ago, didn't we? Hang on. We have a nosy. There's a based on Robert C. O'Brien's children's novel, Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of Nim. Yeah, Mrs. Frisby. Bear with me a wee sec. We'll just have a nosy. National Institute of Mental Health. I don't know. I don't recall that kind of. Yeah. Are you talking about Universe 25, Brad? I'm wondering. Secret that there thing. Hang on. What are we calling it? Bear with me a wee second, just to have a. There's 127 centers that makes up National Institutes of Health. All right, okay. National Institute of Mental Health, I think is what the thing I was thinking on is where are we? Rat Utopia Experiment. If that's what you're thinking on, I think that's called Universe 25, Brad. So no, I don't think that's something to do with it. Universe 25 is very interesting. I think it's as you say, the rat utopia. It's basically create a society, create a living space for rats, and give them everything a rat could ever possibly desire. Give them all the food that they want, all the space that they could have, all the mates, all the water. Go and have a happy little rat life, and off they do. So it's basically, as you say, a rat utopia. I call it Universe 25. Let me just have a wee quick look. Is that what it's known as? Oh, I had the wrong number there. Might be wrong. So obviously, with there being the 25th one, there are 24 preceding. Behavioral sync is there you go. That's what it's taking us to. Rat utopias. There you go. That's National Institute of Mental Health. There is a connection there in terms of what you're talking about, but I don't think there's much in the cartoon. It's not the article that I'd read upon it before. Let me have a wee quick nosy. But yeah, basically, in terms of what happens with the rats, if you give them everything, it's kind of, you give them all the food that they can eat, they end up getting really fat. All the water, all of these kind of things, all the mates that they could ever want, starts to create overpopulation, and essentially you end up with rats everywhere. A very bad societal situation for the rats, cannibalism and all sorts of things. And so your desire to create a utopia actually creates a hell. I think for a rat hell. I think that's I've always known it as Universe 25. It was sponsored by the National Institute for Mental Health. There we go. I didn't know too much about the NIM there in that sense. I just thought it was part of our health service. But Universe 25 is a very, very interesting experiment. Probably not a very nice one. But let me see. I suppose it's interesting when you think about human beings, if you want to apply it to ourselves. What happens when you get everything you want? I suppose arguably you become a Trump or something like that. But that's just for one individual. If everybody in your society was like that, I'll tell you what, Brad. There's a very interesting. It might be one of Alan Moore's Tharg's Future Shocks. And I remember reading it way, way back in the day. It must have been an early one. It's about this family who are all kind of fat, but their son is skinny, and they keep trying to get him to eat food and get fatter. And why? And it's about the human society that they live in. And the father, they get the kind of doctor and they explain it to him. Look, son, you need to get fat. I go, why? And he goes, well, if everybody was skinny, think about all our industry. Because everyone's fat, we have to make bigger seats, bigger cars, bigger. And this is the logic of it. That everyone being of a certain size links into industry and all of this kind of thing. And it kind of just sort of ends up with, I suppose, the kid going, "Oh, better do my bit," and munching down to get fat. It's a kind of strange thing. Bear with me a second, folks. I'll try and catch up with your comments here. Cosette says, "I know that you've probably talked about this, Doc, and I missed it. But I was wondering what you think of Arthur C. Clarke as a human being." Oh, okay. Colleges and cannibals, analog every time. I'll get back to that in a wee second, Cosette. I'll just run through a bunch of these wee one-liners here. Keith saying, "Hi, everyone." Hi, Keith. Thanks for joining us. And colleges and cannibals, TVs to watch, night flyers, night flyers, night flyers, night flyers, night flyers. That sounds like a good recommendation. Great denouement. Great denouement. Yes, and behavioural saying, "Hello, Keith." Or Universe 25, just catching up with Brad's comment, was sponsored by, but it wasn't actually overpopulation. But what was it then? I haven't read this in donkeys. Universe 25 is one of those, I don't know, did they cancel it in the end or something? It's one of those experiments I read about it years ago. But I don't know. There's something of I think there's a lesson behind it, certainly, But it's what happens to your society when you give everyone everything what they like, I suppose, is the philosophical way to look at it. Back up to Cosette. I know that you've probably talked about this, Doc, and missed it, and I missed it, but I was wondering what you think of Arthur C. Clarke as a human being. Excuse me. Instinct sedation. Cosette, I haven't been asked that question before, and I don't really know too much about Arthur C. Clarke as a human being. I do know that there was an attempt to smear him towards the end of his life, and that was to, if now hopefully I'm not remembering incorrectly, but apparently it was really to do with him living in Sri Lanka, and the suggestion was that he lived there for kind of sexual tourism, this kind of thing, which I believe was nonsense. And I think he was quite elderly at the time. Goodness, when did he? I think, was he the last of the big four to die? Was he? Possibly 2008, I think. So I know that there was some. It seemed to be a kind of thing at the time, but a certain type of journalism. 2008, yeah, 19th of March. Oh well, tomorrow will be the anniversary of his death. Then, I'm just wondering, is there anything here on it? I don't see, I suppose, stuff about his views. I don't know. As far as I know, let me see. I thought he was. Let's have a wee look. Politics, technology, paranormal. I don't know. I might be wrong, but I think I know a few things about him. Not honestly too sure if I want to say, but in terms of a human being, I suppose he's contributed to human society. I don't think that there's. I don't think he's on record as having. I don't know what if there's anything specific I haven't heard I suppose, apart from this kind of allegation kind of thing, that I think it was quite salacious and part of the British tabloid, if you know what I mean. He's always been quite a well-known figure here, and you see, I suppose in terms of, if you think about the big four, three of them are Americans. He's the Brit, so we would have him on our TV over here. We wouldn't have programs with Isaac Asimov, or Robert Heinlein, or you'd have to be a science fiction reader over here to have heard of them, I think. I'm just having a wee nosy because I have a book of his here. Which is I think it's downstairs. It's a book from a TV show he did here called Arthur C. Clarke's Amazing World. I think, is that it? Or Amazing Stories, something like that. And he went around looking at things like Stonehenge, the crystal skulls, all of the kind of mysteries of the earth at the time. I think as a sort of style, I thought he was a bit. I think he had a bit of Alan Wicker about him, I suppose. But no, I don't. As I said, I don't really know too much about him. In terms of his stories, I've grown up reading them, Cosette, and the reason why I'm here, probably in terms of doing all of this, I've introduced it from the very beginning, is because of Arthur C. Clarke. So the first ever book club that I was part of at primary school, and the first ever really science fiction book that I bought and paid for with my own money, because I had a paper round, is this. There you go. And it's of Time and Stars. And if you check out my first June PhD novel, it starts off with science fiction. What I really like, I talk about the foreword in this from J.B. Priestley, who's an interesting character to look at. It's the first two stories actually. I mean, the Sentinel's in here, and it's, I mean, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18 short stories in here. Good wee book, 9 Billion Names of God, and my personal favorite of his is An Ape About the House. If I had to pick one, and it's still to this day one of my favorite stories. And it's that type of science fiction, if you like, social science fiction. Absolutely brilliant. Um, yeah, it's and it's what a great wee story. Um, it's it's hilarious. It's very well observed. I don't want to say anything about it because I'd spoil it. It's not a very big story. Pardon me. Arthur C. Clarke's Amazing Stories. Yeah, my copy is about here somewhere, but it's one of those ones that's going to need sellotapes badly. Unfortunately, I have quite a few books like that are in falling apart condition. But I remember watching the Arthur C. Clarke's Amazing. Remember watching it. Sorry, is it Amazing Stories you're asking me about? Because sorry, I'm mixing these up. What was it? Arthur C. Clarke's. Hang on. Do. Let's have a wee look. I suppose one of my, is that why I'm saying is he got a sense of Alan Wicker about him? We had a kind of quite a good journalist here in the UK called Alan Wicker. See, on this website, this is what annoys me. For many years, Clarke, Heinlein, and Isaac Asimov are considered the big three. And let's go to the reference. Where'd you get that from? The big three in the Clarke 20 Wired Club. The big four. And I don't like this kind of let's rewrite science fiction history to make. It's not a fair thing. It's Herbert, by the way, that's been removed from the big four. Frank Herbert's the guy that's been shifted out. Let me see. Television series host. There we go. Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. That's the one I'm thinking on, guys. And there's also Arthur C. Clarke's apparently World of Strange Powers and Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious Universe. So there we go. There we go. Personal. There's something on his personal life there. Now, what I was going to say was that, yeah. Let's see. Marilyn, this is about him marrying Marilyn Mayfield, a 22-year-old American divorcee with a young son. Separated permanently after 6 months. So I thought, being a closet homosexual, I think, was the thing for Clarke, and I suppose in British society at the time. He never close to his ranking man, Leslie. I'm just reading off Wikipedia here. Ekanayake, I think Kanayaki, I believe that's how you pronounce it, whom Clarke called his only perfect friend of a lifetime. In the dedication to his novel The Fountains of Paradise, Clarke is buried with him, who preceded him by 3 decades. In his biography of Stanley Kubrick, John Baxter cites Clarke's homosexuality as a reason why he relocated, due to more tolerant laws with regard to homosexuality in Sri Lanka. Oh, here we go. This is what we were talking about. In 1998, the Sunday Mirror reported that he paid Sri Lankan boys for sex, leading to the cancellation of plans for Prince Charles to invite him on a visit to the country. The accusation was subsequently found to be baseless by the Sri Lankan police. Journalists who inquired of Clarke whether he was gay were told no, merely mildly cheerful. However, Michael Moorcock wrote this. Okay, here we go. So everyone knew he was gay. In the 1950s, I'd go out drinking with his boyfriend. We met his proteges, Western and Eastern, and their families, people who had only the most generous praise for his kindness. Self-absorbed he might be, and a teetotaler, but an impeccable gent through and through. We've got another thing here. It says in an issue of Playboy, when asked if he had a bisexual experience, Clarke stated, of course, who hasn't. In his obituary, Clarke's friend Kerry O'Quinn wrote, yes, Arthur was gay, as Isaac Asimov once told me. I think he simply found he preferred men. Arthur didn't publicize his sexuality. That wasn't the focus of his life, but if asked, he was open and honest. There you go. So that seems to be, of course, he did get his knighthood. There you go. Clarke accumulated, here's an interesting wee point, folks, just before we shut this down. Clarke accumulated a vast collection of manuscripts and personal memoirs maintained by his brother Fred Clarke in Taunton, Somerset, England, and referred to as the Clarkives. Clarke said some of his private diaries will not be published until 30 years after his death. When asked why they were sealed, he answered, well, there might be all sorts of embarrassing things in them. So there you go. But the tabloids in this country are pretty vile, and any kind of salacious story generally needs to be taken with a bit of pinch of salt first, I suppose. Instinct, satiation. Brad, we're back. Oh, yes, the population stalled when the mothers didn't care for children. Colleges and camels. Arthur was a laugh on TV. Frankly, I don't believe it. Amazing stories, Doc. Never really seen many of Amazing Stories. I've got the June, the ones in analog, I suppose. But again, that's a magazine you would not have seen here. I'm trying to think, even the British science fiction magazines like Interzone, you'd be hard pressed to see on the bookshelves over here, I have to say. Colleges and Cannibals. I will stick with my position that it was better at short stories. The Parasite is a lovely piece of weird fiction. Sounds like tall poppy syndrome to me. I don't know what that is. I must look that up. Yes, Brad, disinterred and dragged. I thought Clarke would be known internationally. Well, yeah, I think he's involved with satellites, wasn't he? And radar. He was a proper scientist. Something to do with geostationary satellites, I think. But I believe it's one of those things that within his wartime, he worked for, I think was it the RAF, possibly, I don't know. Let me have it. Let's just bring him back up. I keep shutting him down here. No, in terms of his books, that's a good one. Let me just check his World War II. Here we go. Yes, World War II service from 41 to 46, served in the Royal Air Force as a radar specialist and was involved in the early warning radar defense system, which contributed to the RAF's success during the Battle of Britain. Spent most of his wartime service working on ground-controlled approach radar, as documented in the semi-autobiographical Glide Path, his only non-science fiction novel. There we go. I did not know that. That's one. I did not know he had a non-science fiction novel. Amazing what you can find out when you have a wee quick look through Wikipedia. Didn't see much practical use during the war. After several years of development, it proved vital to the Berlin airlift of 1948 to 49. He initially served in the ranks and was a corporal instructor on radar at No. 2 Radio School, RAF Yatesbury in Wiltshire. He was commissioned as a pilot officer, technical branch, on the 27th of May. Promoted to flying officer in 43, appointed chief training instructor at RAF Honley in Warwickshire, and was demobbed with the rank of flight lieutenant. There you go. Got through the war okay. In terms of his books, guys, Obviously, there's 2001. I think it's an excellent book. Um, Childhood's End. It's not a particularly long book. I don't know if it's here or not. It's probably around somewhere. Childhood's End. I know there's been a TV miniseries of it now, but I remember reading it years and years ago, and just went, "Wow, that's really good." It's a good book. Um, Good story. Again, he's not the ultimate. He's not a masterful pensmith. He's not very flowery with his language in that sense. But I'm just trying to think of anything else offhand. But in terms of, I agree. Somebody said there the short stories really. I was thinking, was better at short stories, the parasite, and at colleges. I agree with that with Asimov as well. It's Heinlein and Herbert that do the novels well, um, and Clarke and Asimov. I think that Asimov in particular is just an ideas machine, but they do churn them out. And I'm not joking. Do you know something? I was saying about this wee story. I actually had a wee look to see if there was any Arthur C. Clarke stuff public domain, but it's tied up. All of his stuff's really tied up quite badly under an estate, I suppose. But an ape about the house. Um, I can't tell you how much I love that story and that it's a nice story. Um, it's just brilliant, and it's just it's about a punchline almost. It's about a reaction. But there you go, and it's I think that one in particular, of Time and Stars, is excellent. Can't recommend this. And I said I got this when I was a little kid and read all of it. And it has, if anybody is interested, then the Sentinel is the last story in it, and the Sentinel is the kind of story that eventually, supposedly grew into 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I do have something else here. I'll tell you what. I'll maybe try and dig these out. Because we can have a wee chat about Arthur C. Clarke maybe next week. I have got some stuff on. It's the book that he did with Stanley Kubrick. I think I've got a copy of it downstairs. But we'll take a wee have a look and see what we have, and we'll bring some stuff up. But I think he's a great science fiction writer. In regards, I think, because we'd had a wee thing recently a while back where somebody was talking about these various things that I think, was it people were trying to talk about Robert Heinlein as a, I don't know, some kind of Nazi or something, and I was just going, wise up, it's don't be daft. It was one of those, but people sort of get these ideas into their head, especially when someone's been dead for some time. It's kind of easy to do a bit of character assassination, I think. I do remember the one thing about that Clarke story at the time was it really was a tabloid hatchet job. And we're used to that over in Britain. We don't trust the tabloids at all. There's, sure, you've seen it recently, I think, with even the BBC, staging things and trying to get, manipulation to get interviews and stuff like that. Quite dodgy. But Parasite. See, it's one of those ones where I'd have to read it again. A lovely piece of weird fiction. All of those, the one that stays in my head, and again, I just have a sense of the story and can tell you what happens at the end. An ape about the house. Just love it. Recommend it to anybody. Let's have a wee look. Tall poppy syndrome. I didn't find that. Let me figure out what that is. Just catching up with your comments. That's from Brad. Tall poppy syndrome. Perceived tendency to discredit or disparage those who have achieved notable wealth or prominence. I didn't know there was a phrase for it. Tall poppy syndrome from the 80s. Commonly in Australia and New Zealand, cutting down the tall poppy is used to describe those who deliberately pull down another in their success and achievements. In Japan, here's a good one. In Japan, a similar common expression is the nail that sticks up gets hammered down. Concept, here's one. Okay, thank you for this. Concept originates from accounts in Herodotus' histories, Aristotle's Politics, and Livy's Ab Urbe Condita Libre, book 1 from the founding of the city of Rome, book with reverse roles referring to Periander's advice to Thrasybulus via a herald. Specific reference to poppies occurs in Livy's account of the tyrannical Roman king Lucius Tarquinius Superbus. He is said to have received a messenger from his son Sextus Tarquinius asking what he should do next in Gabii, since he had become all powerful there. Rather than answering the messenger verbally, Tarquin went into his garden, took a stick, and symbolically swept it across his garden, thus cutting off the heads of the tallest poppies that were growing there. The messenger, tired of waiting for an answer, returned to Gabii and told Sextus what he had seen. Sextus realized that his father wished him to put to death all of the most eminent people of Gabii, which he then did. Oh, yeah, let's build up your treasury by slaughtering the rich. Excuse me. Disinterred and drag, yeah. Brad, I thought Clarke would be known internationally. I think he is, but it's a product, probably a product of our times. I think more than that. Certainly from my generation, he's huge, and I thought he would have been known internationally. Did you just mention Rod Sterling? Rod Serling, isn't it? if I want to find a reputable documentary about him, as he sounds like a very interesting person. I think he's fascinating. There's some stuff. I wonder, do I have a? Let me have a wee quick look. I have all of the Twilight Zones, the originals, and I'm just wondering. Some of his wee introductions to the episodes are very good. Where would you be? Twilight. Goodness gracious, there's an awful lot of them. I think of the Twilight. I talk about this a wee bit now and then, guys. What I call cultural artifacts, and I think of the Twilight Zone as an American cultural artifact. Just very much what I think of America in some ways. There is an interview on this. I'll check it out. Oh, there we go. I'll check it out for you, Brad. It's an interview with Rod Sterling there at the start of it, and I must see if I can find if it's online for you. And if not, I can maybe send it to you. It's probably not a big file. You can find the Parasite on YouTube. Thank you, Colleges and Cannibals. Yeah, there's quite a lot of good stuff on YouTube, isn't there? I was talking a bit about Rod Serling a wee while back, and there's an. Hang on, let me see if I can find this while I'll talk about it. There is an animation on YouTube. If you want to get a sense of the man, I actually love the animation and I love the interview. Let me see. If I can get it's an animated thing. There it is. It's yeah. Hopefully I'm not going to start it here. Let me just pause that. It's called Rod Serling on Kamikazes. There we go. There's the YouTube link for it, folks. I hope that's the right one. It's where he's talking about the imagination of young people. What about imagination? And it's a lot to do with the Twilight Zone. And but it's just it is. It's about why do we make these kind of stories? Why do we tell these kind of things? And it's a wonderful. It's a I think it's like a wee 5-minute interview. Someone's done some exquisite animation and animated the interview. If you like, because I don't think there's any actual footage for this. I think it's a radio interview probably. And it is just delightful. And you know something? It's the sort of thing that should be shown. Pardon me, in every school, that kind of thing. Cosette says, thank you so much for your ideas about Arthur C. Clarke. I'd love to hear more about it later. No, thanks, Doc. No worries, Cosette. I said, yeah, the big four are the people that I was reading as a kid. As I said, and not everything accessible. But at the same time, yeah, I don't think there's anything particularly dodgy about Arthur C. Clarke, not that I can think of. And so it's more a question just having a look at the man's work. But it's one of these things where I think some people get offended sometimes. Not offended. I think they worry about liking something by someone that's maybe not popular or seen as a bad person, this kind of thing. I don't really. If you can separate, I suppose in some senses you can separate the individual from their art, but in other cases, I suppose a lot of what I read would be from the ancient world, and these people are absolute monsters. And if I wanted to pull out all the monsters, get rid of all the killers, throw out all the rapists, do all that, I'd have nothing left to read. It's, it's something similar like that, isn't it? The what was it? I think a few years back, I've mentioned this a couple of times that I think it was either the Independent or the Guardian around the turn of the century. Newspapers in the UK did a poll on the 100 best and 100 worst novels of the 20th century. Excuse me. The interesting thing was that the same book was the top of both lists. So the best book of the 20th century was also the worst book of the 20th century, voted number one on both lists. But I think that they pointed out that something like over 70% of the authors in these lists were alcoholics or drug addicts or this, that, or the other. And so yeah, it's I like Wagner's music. Don't like Wagner at all. Wagner's an asshole, but I love his music. I'm going to listen to it. I don't really care what anybody else thinks. I suppose it's a bizarre thing, and I know we in modern day society we talk about cancel culture and stuff like that. You can't cancel someone if you're dead. If they're dead, is not true. And I suppose that they've had a good attempt with Jimmy Savile in this country. But in Rome, in ancient Rome, you have this idea of you've probably heard of called memento mori, which is if a returning Roman general with his triumph has this guy who whispers memento mori, into his ear all the time. It just means remember that you too will die. The idea is that it's to stop, getting a massive head, if you like, getting a super ego, to bring the triumphant general just down enough, give him his triumph, but remember, and it's a whisper in his ear. It's not a blatantly public thing, if you see what I mean. But they also have a thing called memento damnatio, which is literally about wiping people out. Let's remove every record of their existence so that no one will ever know who they were, which is a bit much, I think, sometimes. I suppose, would require a lot more effort in the modern day society. Clarke was the first person to own a satellite, says Brad. Because that would be an amazing YouTube channel, Doc. All the Twilight Zone monologues for a YouTube channel. You get pretty weird. I grew up with that on the TV in the US. I love I suppose American culture to me. And growing up in Northern Ireland here, 90% of our programming would come from you guys in America. 10% probably from the mainland, and very small, like our local news or that kind of thing. So the bulk of television for me, even though we only had three channels and then four when I was very young, is American. So American cop shows, American science fiction. We talk about things that influence us massively. As much as everyone's blowing the crap out of each other around here, I can watch Mr. Spock do his thing, and peace and love and all of that on Star Trek and things like that. Very, very important. The Twilight Zone. Absolutely engrossed by the Twilight Zone as a little kid. Loved it. And do you know something? Because the old Twilight Zones have such a good atmosphere about them, and it's because they're in black and white. It's the one thing that with the color ones, and the color ones can do other stuff, I suppose, but they've lost that atmosphere, and it's almost what I would call, I don't know. It's very the Twilight Zone's kind of a hybrid, isn't it? It's science fiction, it's fantasy, it's horror, but there's almost a sense of that American Gothic that you would get from I suppose, the Ray Bradbury era, and again things like Ray Bradbury. So the American culture that I grew up with is, I suppose, heavily influenced by, well, the television being a big influence, but it was science fiction in particular, and I suppose that engineering paradigm that's purveying quite a lot in American society at the time. But yeah, and everything about that little setup of the monologue, let's take a journey into the Twilight Zone. There's something very relaxed, and he's like a man from the government, isn't he? He's a man in black. Rod Serling, there's something about him that is a character, even though he's playing himself, dear. Yes, I too study the classical world, and they are monsters. They're absolutely crazy, and as I like to point out, they're not a thing on my society at all. I call ancients behaving badly. Lifestyles of the Rich and Shameless, isn't it? I call them. Yeah, they're. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in the ancient world too, but in general, it's if people, if you, I've heard a couple of things recently. There's a YouTube channel, and I watched it for a wee while, um, and it was a science fiction thing, but I stopped watching it simply for the fact that the guy who hosts it has a gun under his arm all the time and as a prop, and which is I don't like guns. I don't like people who blatantly wear them on TV for no other reason than a safety blanket, if you see what I mean. But he was interviewing Alistair Reynolds, and Alistair Reynolds had said that based on what people out there are saying, suicide's not popular apparently. So just for my own, I'm not going to read any more books by any authors who've ever committed suicide. And I considered what he said and thought it was an incredibly stupid statement, and then just started thinking, who's he wiping out? Who will he never read because of this? And it's sort of, we can kick anything. I suppose all the works of Socrates, committed suicide, for example. It's one of those interesting things. And I just think no matter what material you absorb, you need to be open-minded about it. And if it has a cultural context, try to understand it, and give it a go. And there's plenty of things I put down that I find distasteful, or not distasteful, but just the Greek stuff I can take actually quite well, Cosette. But you see the Viking stuff, the sagas of the Icelanders and things like that. That's so heavy. And I don't know, almost these people think about what they read. Actually, a lot of people don't read this stuff. They don't go near it, and they're I find some people would have great difficulty in reading stuff like this. Excuse me. Because it says I feel the same way about Pete Townsend. I haven't cancelled him, and I don't know what's up with the CP scene. But he's always been quite sketchy. Also a genius. So what are you going to do, right? Pete Townsend, as in the Who? Are you talking about CP scene? I don't know. Oh, could you expand the CP? What that means? I don't know. I take it that's who you mean, Cosette. Pete Townsend from the Who. What's he been at? Yeah. No, I think I used to drink in his pub. So I've no idea what's he up to. What's he been? I remember he got in a bit of bother for a while back for checking out certain kind of websites where he said he was trying to collate information to kind of help about it. I think, if you know what I mean. But again, the Pete Townsend, the Who, I'd listen to the Who. Not going to cancel it. Yeah. CP scene. I don't know what that means. Child. Yes, we are talking about the same thing. Again, it went through the press, didn't it? And I don't think he was found. I think he wasn't found guilty, but he was told that his judgment was really stupid. Something like that, I think. I'm not too sure. Brad says, thanks, I'm a bit behind on the stream. No worries, Brad. I'm just trying to catch up myself. Great men have great faults. Can't remember who said it, but yeah, we all have our faults, don't we? In the 80s, there was a Martian Chronicles TV adaptation, or was it the 70s? I remember it very well. Colleges and Cannibals. It was absolutely brilliant. Why the hell it's not been on TV again ever since, I don't know. And I'm going to go out there and say that the music from the Martian Chronicles is absolutely awesome. That super funky Martian, absolutely brilliant. And it's sorry, I'm gushing, aren't I? I love the Martian Chronicles so much. And again, we're going. It's either late 70s or early 80s. It's Rock Hudson, isn't it? I believe. What a great! It was on over 3 nights. Brilliant music in the Martian Chronicles. If anyone can check out in theme, I'm sure there's some incidental music to it. Miniseries 1980. There you go. And it's Rock Hudson, Darren McGavin, Bernadette Peters, Roddy McDowell, Fritz Weaver, Barry Morse, and Maria Shell. And the special effects in it, the models and stuff, I'm not too sure who did them. Wonder does it tell us here? But similar special effects to the things that you would see on Japanese TV and things like Monkey and oh goodness, absolutely wonderful model sets. It says the miniseries was directed by Michael Anderson, was written by Richard Matheson. There you go. It was 3 episodes: the Expeditions, the Settlers, and the Martians. I love it. I'd love to watch it again. If you told me it was on TV now, I'd say goodnight, guys. Sorry, gotta go. It's brilliant. So yeah, 1980. That was such a big thing. Again, this is I don't know how it was over in America or in the Americas or in Canada or anywhere like that. It was huge here. It was like, a big cinema star and everything like that. Let's see, Crowder interviewing Reynolds, probably not Crowder. Oh, I'm lost there, Crowder. Ba-da-ba-ba. Interviewing Reynolds, probably not Crowder. Oh, are you asking who was interviewing him? It was Media Death Cult, that show, which I think is a science fiction show. It talks about books and stuff, but if that's his name, and it's a pity because he's good style and attitude about him. Or Moidenhoff or something. Media Death. Yeah, Media Death Cult. That was him, wasn't it? I think. And he's not a bad wee show. Don't get me wrong, but I will not watch people sit on TV with guns for a comfort blanket. It's just obscene. There's something wrong with it. And there's young people. I'm aware that some of my students watch my show, so I do. And as much as there's plenty of I behave like an adult on here, and their parents are warned, I do try to watch my language a bit, but I'll not sit with guns strapped to me. I mean, I'm from Northern Ireland, by the way. Me wearing guns will present a very, very, very different message to the world. If I stick on a little balaclava and put a car bomb here next to me, then I'm fully dressed, aren't I? It's sorry, that's me being my black humor. Yeah, Pete Townsend from The Who, they found pictures of that on his computer, still can't cancel. Yeah, there was more to it, I think, than that. It's not as black and white. Sorry, love. I'm getting a look from my wife there about that last one. Yeah, you listen to the music, I wouldn't think it's, same thing. All sorts of Wagner's horrible person, anti-Semitic twat, but great music. Don't really care to meet the man, but I'll listen to his music. It's, I don't know. It's, if you think about what we have in the world and how we got it, you need to go back quite a bit. And be surprised how we get our technologies and our knowledge, and a lot of it's got quite gruesome stuff behind it. I used to drink in a pub, Cosette, when I was a student in Twickenham a long time ago, and I think it was his pub. My understanding is called. I think he owned it anyway. I believe it's called the White Swan. Now we're talking in the early 90s. So you get a few kind of rich types hanging around the Twickenham Richmond area, if you like, in London, because it's very expensive. But yeah, I don't know. It's a thing about your heroes as well, isn't it? Sometimes, as much as musicians can be great, authors can be, it's sometimes when they open their mouths and the stuff comes out that they go, okay, it's a bit bizarre. But yeah, I think art has to be separated from an individual, and you can always attach it again. Rod Sterling was anti-war. Is it Sterling or Serling? Because I always thought it was Sterling myself. Have I been? Yeah, it is. It's Rod Serling. And not having a go, Brad, but you see, I called him Rod Sterling for about 30 years. So it's totally understand. It's Rod Serling. He was anti-war and racism. Won awards for using black people on TV when it was whitewashed. Woke before it was a thing. See, I don't think woke was a thing before. I think people are just awake, and the whole woke thing is the people who are asleep, who never noticed, didn't see what was going on in the world. So to me, if you're woke, it's a criticism of yourself, I think. Why were you not awake before? What did you think you were looking at? I think it's bizarre, this whole woke thing. I think of the new Dune movie as woke. Excuse me. Stephen Crowder, YouTuber, wears a gun. Dear, oh dear. There you go. Well, so that's get the way you're wondering. What's his channel about? Is it a channel about guns? I believe you'll be able to find the Martian Chronicles on YouTube. Yeah, do you know what? It's one of those things that I know what I'm saying there, and how silly I've seen must seem. Oh, I'd love to see that again. It's about how you absorb media, isn't it? And I'm still getting used to looking for things on YouTube and things like that. It's yeah. Wagner has beautiful moments and painful quarter hours. It's a good way of putting it. My favorite piece of music ever is the funeral march of Siegfried, and I'll just show you this actually. Hang on. I have a friend from. I have a very good friend from Berlin. His name is Stefan Scheuneck. If he's watching, Stefan, hi. Helped him out a couple of times, and just I used to talk to him about Wagner. And just with a very bad memory for tunes and stuff. This is the reset. He brought me this as a present, and just out of the blue. It's during this Nebelungen. This is the Bayreuth Festival Orchestra and Chorus, and this is meant to be the recording. It's the July 1953, and he brought me this as a present, and I've never been so delighted. And it's exquisite, and I must actually scan some of these bits of artwork and stuff on it. But that's my favorite piece of music because I love music. And I can tell you why. It's you probably know it from Excalibur and all sorts of things, but it's the funeral march of Siegfried is this kind of most subtle, very quiet, very quiet. You'd almost wouldn't know you're listening to it, and it has the full. It just takes you from almost from silence to the full bombastic. Dun, dun, dun. It's just amazing, and it blows my face off, and I love listening to it. And it's the subtleties in it that I really like, and there's all sorts, and there's quite a lot of it I don't like as well. But doesn't mean I'm going to chuck it out the window. Crowder does mainly American culture and politics, quite funny and insightful from time to time. Well, the gun's part of American culture, I suppose, isn't it? It's part of mine too. But it's we're not allowed guns here, but everybody goes around using them, I suppose. But I just thought it's out of place with the media death cult thing's meant to be a sort of science fiction channel. I think something similar to kind of what I was wanting to do. I thought so. I actually enjoyed, but it was the attention. My attention kept getting drawn to the gun, and that's it as far as I'm concerned. I don't know why he wears it, and it's simply put, I'm not very comfortable with people who are wearing guns. Here is a link to the Martian Chronicles and the playlist on YouTube. Goes, excellent, thank you. What was that? It hasn't come up there, but don't know why. I think I have links activated. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, I mean, it's I think with the new YouTube terms of service, you can no longer brandish a gun on screen or weapon of any kind like a knife. I think that's a good idea. Well, he's not brandishing it. He's wearing it in a holster under his arm. But yeah, I don't know. I have a couple of weapons in this house, and you're not seeing them. It's you can see my guitars. That's a thing of language and peace and all of that kind of stuff. You can see my books, but and they're I'm not going to bring my weapons out and show them to you. It's just what's that about? It's I don't know. It seems a wee bit bizarre. When gun ownership is outlawed, then only outlaws own guns. Well, I consider myself a bit of an outlaw, to be honest. Colleges, and that's in the sense that my society, the law protects monsters and leaves people like us to our own business. So, the law is a very dodgy thing with me, as personally, I understand it very well. It's just the application of a written word by an individual or group. Kurt is famous for setting up a trade in a public up a table, sorry, in a public place, usually a university campus, with a sign, "I'm pro conservative talking point. Change my mind and debate whoever comes up." Okay, yeah, I'd have a chat with him if you like. There we go. There's Guillermo Solari saying, "Hello, Doc." Hi, Guillermo. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Chris Gibson, Wagner YouTube has the ultimate version with Klaus Tenstedt conducting the London Philharmonic. I think that one I was showing is it's a Bayreuth Festival one. Sorry, I put it away quickly there. It's a 12 CD set. Yeah, well, apparently what he did was he went into a music shop in Germany, and he basically said, my Northern Irish friend really likes the ring cycle. What's the best one? And they gave him that one. So I'm no expert at all, but it's and again, it has that kind of, the phonographic, the crackling almost of it, and the atmosphere. It's I suppose some of the audience cough and splutter a bit in it, but it's very, very good. Pardon me. Let's see. Colleges and Campbell says, "I enjoy those shows very much, Keith. Keith, I've seen that where people change it for a joke." So I'm pro whatever the conservative talking point is, and change it. Well, that sounds, debate is good, I suppose. The point of having a gun is if I suppose if you don't like who's debating with you, you can just kill them and end their voice forever. My problem with guns is it's too easy, and that's all the amount of brain power you need to use a gun. It's if you're drunk and you've got one, there's so many, but it's the lethality and the immediacy and the power of it, and it's just too much. I think it's very easy to kill people, isn't it? It makes it too easy. And that's what I don't like about guns. And I'll tell you something, I think nobody knows who invented the gun. As much as we can go, Samuel Colt, the single, was it revolver, this kind of blah, certain types of gun, we can go back to rockets and China and gunpowder, but who invented the gun is an unknown as far as I know. And I think that's quite disturbing. I saw this crazy woman's YouTube channel where she wore a shirt open to her belly button and pressed up and down, lifting an AK-47. Like a weight, using it as a barbell with her boobs while her boobs were out. I don't think that's a good idea. No. Nothing stopping him for only showing the dumbest debaters, thus getting points for it. I suppose, well, if you choose your opponents poorly, it actually says a little bit more about you than you don't ever really want to debate against someone who isn't on the same par as you. It doesn't look well. You don't come across that well either. I think it's not good to have an imbalance, I suppose, in that kind of debate. Guns are just a small cannon. Who invented the cannon? Yeah, I know. We can think about it. I suppose who got it all. There's various developments in it, but I remember wanting to know who invented the gun. And so I often thought about this. We talked about technology, and was it somebody talked about the five pieces of technology that have influenced you most in your life? I'll go with book, TV, gun, car bomb. What would be probably glasses? That's my five. I don't know. It's if there weren't any guns in the world, wouldn't that be nice? I suppose. People would probably just fall back to swords and knives and all that kind of stuff. Guns are just small cannons. Yes, they are. Some guns are quite, almost like cannons these days. There's Rolando Sada saying, "Howdy, Doc." Hi, Rolando. Rolando. Thank you very much for joining us. Colleges and Campbell saying, "Worth watching. Crowder's Change My Mind shows might change your mind about the format." I think I've seen it. I think it rings a bell. Yeah, I suppose it's one of those kind of. It's a good kind of thing. But if you're editing out and shifting it a lot of it, I suppose you're not going to get a true sense of it. And if you're, I don't know, does put it this way: does your man win all of his arguments? Once the bullet leaves the barrel, it ain't coming back. Yeah, it is interesting. There are guns all over this country. I suppose. Let me see. I could tell you some stories. Um, I could tell you how to come to Northern Ireland and find guns as a tourist, if you like. How to go digging. But I did my school GCSE history project on what's called Larn gun running, which is when I suppose there were three places it was done: Larn, Donaghadee, and where was it? God, I can't even remember. Larn, Bangor, and Donaghadee, I think. And it's when the Protestants brought in lots of German rifles and handguns, etc., and hid them all over the country. Um, and this is prior to the creation of Northern Ireland. And yeah, I was doing my school project and had to clear out an barn outside of Larne and dug up the floor in the place. There's a Model T Ford engine. Oh, no, it wasn't a Model T Ford engine. What was I talking about? Oh, why? There was, aye. It had been buried after. There'd been buried stuff there for all sorts of times. And we'd found all these guns, and they were Steyr Mannlicher, I think. And there was a Mauser broom handle pistol, I think. So it was mid to late 1910s onwards, I suppose. And a couple of old flintlock shotguns, and all of this stuff sort of just buried in the floor, So I did well in my school project. But was it? I like what how is it put in the new Mad Max film? The bullets are anti-seed. You know, plant one in a human being and watch them die. Um, there are less formal debates and focused discussions. Had to be some editing, of course, but he tends to be generous with university students with whom he engages. There's our friend Frederick Nietzsche. Frederick Nietzsche said he only wanted his enemies to be the best of people. Anything less shows your level. Yeah, I mean, you judge a man by his enemies, I suppose. Um, you know. Mm. Excuse me, folks. I'm going to take a wee short break here quickly and run to the loo and change out maybe. I'll be right back, folks, if you give me a wee second. Sorry about this. And if you've got any wee questions or comments, fire them away, and I'll get right back to them as soon as I get back. 2 ticks. There we go. Hello, folks. Sorry about that. Dear, oh dear. Let me just get old Asteria on here and open another wee here just to keep my voice going. Okay, let's see if we've seen on there. Nietzsche said, "Oh, that's just Brad's comment." We always come into the Nietzsche. Said he's only wanted his enemies to be the best of people. Anything less shows your level. Cosette says, "Yeah, Brad. The first gun that I ever first gun that I'd ever shot killed my grandfather. My grandfather was murdered with his own gun when he came home to two guys robbing his house. Dear, oh dear. Cosette, I'm so sorry. That's terrible." Rolando said, "I've just got here. What's the subject?" Yes. Well, sorry, we did wander off a wee bit onto guns there, Rolando, but it's not our topic. We're just science fiction in general. Um, and I suppose it was a bit of a discussion about another science fiction channel where the host wears a gun under a side holster, and I kind of, as much as the channel is kind of good, and he seems reasonably well connected in terms of media and content and science fiction and all of that stuff. I'm not interested in watching a guy wear a gun on, and it's there's no reason for him to wear a gun other than some kind of mental safety blanket. So sorry, we just got sidetracked a wee bit, Rolando. And we were just talking about my my school project, which was the Larn gun running, and I actually found a whole bunch of guns in Larn. So I did well. It was just one of those things, but I don't like guns. I'm from Northern Ireland, Rolando, so guns, bombs, all of that stuff, don't like it at all, which I think is fair enough. The Mauser broom handle probably worth quite a bit to a collector today. Rolando, weapons required by society. I don't think society requires weapons. To be honest with you, I don't know. The modern world's a very strange place, and I kind of got to the point where part of what I always think about science fiction, for example, is getting to look at worlds where we've grown up and had a bit of sense, and we're not slaughtering each other for whatever, for bits of money or some guy stuck to a piece of wood or something. It's all rather pointless to me. And I think that if you need to go out and shoot someone and something's badly wrong, I think talking to someone's much better. My stepmother of 40+ years was on a double date with her best friend. When they were 18 years old, one of the men of the double date with them had a gun, and they started to play with it. My stepmother accidentally blew off her best friend's head. Goodness gracious, Cozy. That's terrible. That is sad, I have to say. Guns go off accidentally, and that kind of thing. I don't know. Yes, that was the devil all the time. Yeah, I'm not too sure if you're wondering, if you're talking about the troubles there, Rolando. I'd argue that it's not over, but that's just me. I tend to present a very different view than anything that you'll get from anybody in this country. That's kind of good as far as I'm concerned. True hope in getting away from this realm and visit others. The words help to keep the heart full. That's a very nice phrase. True hope in getting away from this realm and visit others. The words help to keep the heart full. Lovely idea, Rolando. Well, for me, you see, that's what science fiction really was about, wasn't it? It's for me, it's always been a bit of an escape, but not just an escape, a real educator. That doesn't fill you with sort of fancy and whimsy. That shows what if you could sort your society out, and what if we could do these things? What if we could, how to? It's about the human condition, really, isn't it? I often think that one of the problems that science fiction has is the name it's got. Are you away with that, love?
No tea.
Huh?
Oh, I get tea.
Okie dokie, thank you. Sorry, I spelled but yeah, the Ukrainians are kind of big on civilian gun ownership right now. I know you can't really talk, can you? Whenever it's something like that's going on. And it's I don't know. We've had a wee chat, Keith. I suppose we've looked at what we talk about hydraulic despotism and stuff like that. And you're seeing all of it being played out by Russia at the minute, or by the Russian government and its leaders rather than the Russian people, I suppose. Which is often the case, But civilian gun ownership in certain conditions is okay, but in others it isn't, I suppose. Here in Australia, Brad says the Prime Minister took the guns away as disliked by a lot of people, but even those on the opposing side agree that it was the right thing. I've got a story to tell you, but I'm not sure if I should or not. But I've personally have helped take off a lot of guns off people in this country. I'm not supposed to have, and nobody knows anything about it. But basically, in line with where I used to live, and I'll not name the town. Once upon a time, a bunch of farmers just started shooting their wives. One of them walked into the town, blew his wife away in the middle of the shopping arcade, and then came out and reloaded in front of the cops to point it at the cops. So he committed suicide by cop, and this would have been in the very early 90s. And basically, the local police at this point they decided they wanted to take away the legally held firearms by a lot of farmers, and mostly shotguns and 2.2 rifles and stuff. And so we basically can't really say what my role was in it, but I did it. That's a good one, isn't it? That's very Irish. And so, in a funny sense, I've worked for an organization that has no idea that I worked for them at all, and did, as far as I'm concerned, did a lot of good. That I for X amount of time in my life, I went around taking guns off people that shouldn't have them, and taking them to be destroyed. So that's a good one, I think. You know. But there we go. I mean, the saying is John Howard did one good thing. I see. Excuse me. Rolando Sada says, whom of the modern hard sci-fi do you have on your reading table? Well, I suppose it depends on what we call modern, Rolando. Hard sci-fi, that's another, I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. I suppose the most modern book that I've got that I haven't read yet is the Shishin Lu book, because the three-body problem and the beginning of that trilogy. So I'm looking forward to getting to that, and I've been told that it's a kind of hard science fiction, but I haven't read it yet. But it is on my reading table, as you say. Goodness gracious, what have we got? I honestly don't know. Really, in relation to this channel, Rolando, kind of what I'm doing is running through a lot of old sci-fi, or trying to present really good stuff, classic stuff, if you like. But at the same time, I'm just like any other science fiction reader. I'm always on the lookout for something new. But in terms of if we call it hard sci-fi, I don't know. The culture really is and I suppose the Ancillary Justice, those three books by Anne Leckie are kind of reasonably tacked. But the government gun, Lark. Not again, they don't know. I've done other things they don't know about as well, Keith. Bryn. No, I think I haven't read anything by Bryn. I'm afraid I have a book here somewhere. And again, I tend to pick up secondhand books a lot, Rolando. So, hard science fiction. It's one of those distinctions, isn't it? And I'm not often the things that I think people think are hard science fiction. I don't. And if it's just that there's a level of technicality into it, but it's not the science fiction that I really like. I prefer. Well, I suppose I like a bit of a balance, but I actually kind of like the more sort of social kind of science fiction, if you like. But I'd be hard pressed to say. I'm a bit of an oddball, Rolando, and I'm not that up to. Half my head's in the ancient world as well as the science fiction table. But if you haven't read any Anne Leckie, I have to say that her books were out of the blue. I thought, and I actually one day made a conscious choice. I'm going to choose a new author. This book looks good. Just to bring it down here. These are published by Orbit. Ancillary Justice, there we go, is the first, I believe it's the first one. And we have Ancillary Sword and Ancillary Mercy. And I've just picked up a new book that's set in the same universe, and I did not enjoy I put it down, actually. I did not enjoy it. And it was messing around with pronouns in that sense quite a lot. This book does that as well, but it does it very well. Fun but hard, not so much. Oh, I don't know. There's some of the ideas in there. It depends. What do we call hard sci-fi? And is it just that there's a level of technical knowledge that has to be displayed on the paper, on the page? I don't know. Sloan, the government. Those who watch it, would you call SFI with Isaac Arthur's hard science fiction? He's I'd call him a futurist, wouldn't you? Isn't that what he does? I suppose I have a bit of a go at that stuff myself. I'm quite good at predicting events, but I don't really stick it on the screen or anything like that. But I would say he's a futurist, which is not a bad term at all in that sense. But like Alvin Toffler, that kind of thing. Pardon me. He's doing some real speculating. I suppose it is science fiction to a degree on where we're going to go. Um, isn't hard to sci-fi the stuff with numbers and physics. I, and if you have a wee look at my videos, whenever we look at the Dune videos way back, it talks about why people criticize Dune, this kind of thing. What's the major criticism? And Dune's a book where people go, "Oh, it's hard. Is it hard sci-fi or is it soft sci-fi?" It's one of those, and I don't think it's hard at all in any way. But I'm not too sure. It's to be honest with you, I often find such sort of kind of things. I don't know. I just read science fiction, and I am such a person that over the years I've read so many pulp books, and I'll read it. If you put something down that looks reasonably sci-fi to me, I'll give it a shot. Um, Niven, etc. The Moat in God's Eye. Nobody talks about the doghouse gun. The doghouse gun. Do we have a gun in the doghouse? I hope not. Banks fun, but hard not so much. He is definitely fun. There is some of the stuff in there that's quite. I don't know. The ideas are pretty good, I think, actually. And even if you think about the idea of what Star Trek would call teleportation, the culture uses it as displacement. A futurist as an ESP. No, that's not what I meant at all. Sorry, because is that what a futurist is now? Goodness, that would have been the wrong thing to call the gentleman. Then that's futurologist perspective. Foresight. Oh, right, okay. Obviously, it has become something different. Let me see. Yeah, so visionary writers such as H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, Aldous Huxley were not in their day characterized as futurists. The term futurology is a contemporary sense coined proposed a new science of probability. That's kind of what I'm talking about. Let me see. as for people making predictions from nothing, no, it's futurists are people who take in all sort of scientific, technological trends, look at what's happening in society. It's a bit like science fiction, but rather than making a novel out of it, actually try to make a statement as to where society is going. That kind of thing. That's what I meant. So, but it looks like, the term has maybe gone a bit a bit funny. I had the pleasure of meeting one of my favorite authors, and we both loved a silly paperback named Murphy's Gambit, says Rolando. Funny how the used book wanders into many lives. I thought Hard was based on real world science. Well, technically, all science fiction should be based on real world science. If it's not, then it becomes fantasy. And science is an interesting word. It's one of those things that in this country, science is a bad word from religion, and science is considered the direct opposite of religion for some reason. And I think most people don't even know what the word science means in this country. But simply, we can run it as knowledge, if you like, what we know. And it is one that causes a lot of debate, and it's one of these. I don't know. It's kind of a silly one, I think. I get the sense, Brad, that hard science fiction really is overly technical. The science tends to cover more of the narrative than the actual characterization or any of these kind of things. And so I'm not too sure. I've never found a book that's been that. I can't think of one anyway. Probably. Oh, tell you what, the one that would probably come closest to hard science fiction is Cosmos. There you go. That's the book. I don't know where my copy of Cosmos is, but it's Cosmos by Carl Sagan is a book that I've had in some shape or form since it came out, and I love it. But it's mostly science, but there's science fiction there too. Keith says, cite an equation or two, and boom, it's hard sci-fi. Doesn't matter how much other hand waving you do for the rest of and that the argument with Dune, often as it's pointed out in the videos, guys, is that Dune is criticized because of all the whole what people view as all the psychic powers that are in Dune. Um, that they detract from the hard science, the ecological message in it. We were having a look at the other, was it the chapter where they're out in the desert the other day, and then we followed on to the banquet scene. We're having talking about laboratory experiments, the Tansley effect, Liebig's law of the minimum. So that's all science as far as I'm concerned. And if that's what we make, if that's what makes a science fiction book a hard science fiction book because it's got real science in it, then almost all of them are. I think it's more of a question of degrees. I think. But that one, yeah. Keith says, I think the hard soft is a silly distinction. I kind of agree, to be honest. No, I was just wondering what you meant, Doc. No worries. What was that in relation to? Oh, futurist. No worries. Yeah, no, but terms do change over the years, so I thought I'd better check myself. But I suppose it's a form of extrapolation, really, isn't it? You were speaking about predictions, and I wondered about what kind. Not good ones, unfortunately. There's a girl murdered here called Lyra McKee. I predicted that, not her specifically, but I predicted someone of her generation. In terms of the troubles, in terms of these new young people, someone of her generation would be murdered by a new generation of terrorists, and it was only a matter of time. And I'm very, very sad about that, I have to say. This kind of stuff, no, it's yeah. I've predicted a few things. I predicted the global economic collapse, and didn't buy a house at the time. But I was in banking at the time. I was a mortgage underwriter. I saw that coming a mile away, and I told lots of people about it. Nobody believed me. But I thought that was quite a funny one. So no, it is. I do look at society, pay attention to the news a wee bit, try not to, but everything's connected. And I've always thought that way, and I try to run connections and try not to get too absorbed in everything that's out there. But I do like running threads, and I have that kind of head, unfortunately, that, as I said, I have a very funny sleep disorder, so, and I don't really have what you would call a subconscious, or maybe an unconscious, I don't know, but my head is awake all the time, so I run problems, and I just try to read or fill my head with stuff. Or it's one of the good things about doing the YouTube videos. It's really given me a wee outlet, and doing something like this, it's no bother really. I can turn this on. Let's talk about something, anything science fiction, and all I need is really somebody to join in, and I'm good. I've got a whole bunch of reference books here, all sorts of stuff here if we need to find out anything or we're not too sure. But doing the wee videos, kind of, you've got to do a bit of science. You've got to write the thing. You've got to edit it. You've got to check your facts. You've got to, do your, I suppose, putting the video together, putting the sound together, all of these things, uploading and rendering. It's a lot to do. It's quite busy. Futurist is an overused label these days, like polymath. Well, I'm a polymath too. I find polymath is a term that's used quite a lot by people who aren't polymaths. Polymath means many subjects in Greek. The one I always like, regardless of that, colleges, is that as a classicist, I'm automatically a polymath. I don't need to go studying other subjects. I've studied enough subjects within that world, I suppose. Ursula K. Le Guin was hard anthropology. That's an interesting statement, colleges. I have just picked up Ursula K. Rolando was asking what have we just picked up on my book table. Not everything that I get, Rolando, is science fiction, because I do. For those who know me, I'm heavily invested in the ancient world, and particularly, mythology, and especially mythology, and this kind of thing. But the one that we did pick up, there we go. The word for world is forest. That's my new Ursula K. Le Guin. I came to Ursula K. Le Guin quite late. I read The Left Hand of Darkness in the 90s, enjoyed it, but never read anything else by her for quite a while. I picked up an Earthsea book, and then let me just see. And it's very interesting what you said, colleges. I want to read you something, see what you think. If I can just find Ursula. Where are you? 1 wee second. I just wish to grab another one of her books here. I'd like to read you what it says on the back. Hang on. Ursula K. Le Guin. Tell me there, love. Yep. Oh, I can't find it. Damn it. Okay. This is the problem, folks. Sorry, I can't find that one at the second. Let me see. Oh no, here it is. Here we go. Down here. Here we go. So, Dispossessed. Excellent, really good. I've come to love Ursula K. Le Guin. I think she's brilliant. One of my favorite science fiction writers by far. This is the one I read recently, is The Lathe of Heaven, and I really enjoyed that. This would not be, if you enjoyed Philip K. Dick, this would not be out of place. Here's what I wanted to read to you about Ursula K. Le Guin. See what you think about this. This is her biography on the last book that I bought, and I was a bit disgusted by this. As you pointed out, Le Guin's hard anthropology. Here's what it says. Ursula K. Le Guin is the daughter of a distinguished anthropologist. Holy shit. Excuse my French. It's talking about her father. This is her book. And Gollancz, an imprint of the Orion Publishing Group Limited, that blurb, whoever wrote it on the back, should be ashamed of themselves. Absolutely disgusting. Daughter of a distinguished anthropologist. Daughter of a distinguished anthropologist fixed it on this one. And I checked them actually because I really didn't like that. Here's what the new biography says on her here. So this, what great books. This is this woman's own work, and she's being framed in light of her father. Gollancz Orion books, you should be ashamed of yourselves. This is I think maybe they have been ashamed of themselves by the looks of it, because it's been changed here. And this is one that's the biography on the back of this the word for world is forest has been altered, and it's a modern copy here because she passed away in 2018. It now says Ursula K. Le Guin is one of the finest writers of our time. Her books have attracted millions of devoted readers and won many awards, including the National Book Award, the Hugo and Nebula Awards, and a Newbery Honour. Among her novels, The Left Hand of Darkness, The Dispossessed, and the 6 books of Earthsea have attained undisputed classic status. She passed away in 2018, and not a word about her father. Isn't that appalling? I just think how disingenuous, to such a great writer, and you're publishing her books, republishing her books, and you don't even talk about her as you start off your introduction to her bibliography. You say that she's the daughter of a famous man. What a twat! Sorry, I don't like things like that. I'm very pleased to see that they've fixed that. That her biography there is as it should be, a world-class writer in her own right, not nothing to do with any men at all, and it's nothing to do with anything like that. I'd say if you're a man, Ursula K. Le Guin is your. If you're a reasonably sensible man, she's your kind of feminist, if you know what I mean. She's my kind of feminist, and I have a lot of time for Ursula Le Guin, a lot of time for her books. I think she's wonderful. I think she's one of the more rational heads on her, by the way. Out of the science fiction that comes out of America of a certain time, if you like, So what should I invest my money in now, Guru Doc? Well, I intend to destroy all money on the earth, Keith, by creating a phagic virus that eats every piece of data. So I would buy gold. Take Robert A. Heinlein's advice, buy gold discs that have no markings on them, and then you can use them anywhere for currency. That's a wee trick you'll learn in Time Enough for Love, I suppose. 1990 Time for the Guru. Oh, goodness. What was that? 1990. That is diminishing Ursula's something. I know colleges. It's just a wee point. It's a little tiny thing on a little tiny bit of a book, and so it's on all of these books up until she dies, and then they fixed it. And I just wanted to point it out. I'm a person who believes in isonomia, which is absolute equal law for all. So I'm a feminist, if you want to call it that as well. I think that's appalling, and I'm not joking. If I was the person who owned, if I had any investment in this book company, if I was one of these people running these science fiction master, I'd go nuts. I'd absolutely be so appalled at that. And how are the other female writers being presented on the back of the science fiction? And there's fantasy masterworks, and a daughter of a policeman, brought up by her. It's appalling, and it's I diminishing Earth is something wrong. I just thought it was appalling, and I said the one good thing is that it's been fixed. And to read you, one of those things about Ursula K. Le Guin, you can imagine if she was in the room. Can you imagine if she was in the room? How that would, you'd apologize. I can't read this to you. This is appalling. It's so disingenuous. Ursula K. Le Guin is one of the finest writers of our time. That's more like it, I think. And if anybody's not read her, I find her writing, as I said, very curious. I enjoy her writing a lot. I'm not quite sure where she's going to take her stories, which is also a thing that I enjoy a lot. But I'm really, and this is a book that's generally bandied in relation to Dune. By the way, it's one of these ecological books. Let's see, the publishing date is, when is it? Must be. Oh, I'll tell you something, guys. I would like to read something to you. I was having a wee look at this book, and it was partly that it was just something that we were talking about the war in Ukraine and stuff and things like that. And there's an introduction in this book by Ken MacLeod. And it's to do with the nature of this book. I'll just read it to you. The oppression corrupts the oppressors is well enough known. That oppression corrupts the oppressors is well enough known. That resistance to oppression can profoundly change those resisting, and for the worse, is less widely recognized, particularly among those who give that resistance their sympathy and solidarity. The ennobling aspect of resistance, of standing up, of fighting back, of driving the invader from the homeland, is seen and celebrated. The corrupting aspect, the hardening of the heart, the acceptance of casualty and atrocity, the replacement of the moral calculus with a cold-eyed calculation of advantage, of revenge and reprisal, is put out of mind, and sometimes for what seems the best of reasons. That too is part of the damage done. And I just made, when I was reading this introduction last night by Ken MacLeod, I just felt so sorry for the people of Ukraine, because this will change them, and it will make them worse, not better. And that's where they truly deserve pity. I think it's that they'll become hard and toughened and what Russia's doing to them, and it'll create brutal people, hard people, and it's something that you can see all over the world, places like this, But there we go. For more recent hard anthropology, try Werner Venge's novels In the Zones of Thought series. Sound is right, says Brad. See, that's I'm having a hard time with modern and more recent. Werner, is it In the Zones of Thought? Werner Venge isn't still alive, is he? Werner Venge. And his wife, they're both. He must be. There you go. That's an appalling thing to say, isn't it? He must be. Oh, he's not that old, is he? I thought he was a lot older. He's 77. He's a year younger than my dad. He is. He's an American science fiction writer and retired professor. Yes, indeed. Singularity, isn't it, with him? I think. What's his wife? Joan Venge. Joan Venge came within my sphere the other day. I think she was involved something to do with possibly the Tiger graphic novel. I think it was something that had her stamp on it the other day. And again, quite interesting. There's a whole bunch of characters, I suppose, science fiction writers and etc. from that era. Somebody told me off for not putting Werner Vinge into my A to Z, and I just, oh God, V for Vinge. I hadn't even thought of him there because I was thinking of V for Vendetta and the veritable verisimilitudes and all the V's, etc., which I thought was quite funny. When I was a kid, I had one encyclopedia in my attic, and it was V, which is the one I read. So I always loved V for Vendetta, I have to say. McLeod sounds like he's making analysis of BLM. What's BLM? Sorry, colleges, I'm very bad with acronyms. I thought it was Bug-Eyed Monsters from a BEM. Acronyms. Acronyms need expanding. I'm so bad at them. Backing up there a wee bit. We were talking about futurists a wee while back, I think. Are you there, Mr. Topper? Let me see. The really interesting book. There's who would be the most modern sort of guy like that? Somebody bought me a book. One of my students bought me a book, not realizing what the title meant, and thought it was something else. It meant something else. Oh no, that's not it. Homo Deus, isn't it? That's what I'm thinking of. God the man. Yuval Noah Harari. Yuval Noah. Sorry, that's the font here. Yuval Noah Harari. I've read a little bit by this person's. Homo Deus is a brief history of tomorrow. He's got a couple of other books. That's the only one that I've read, and I would argue that's here we go. Is a book written by. He's a professor at Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Futures studies is how it's presented there. That's what I call futurism. I wasn't that impressed. Oh, Black Lives Matter, right? Thank you. Sorry, colleges. Sounds like he's making an analysis of Black Lives Matter. I'm not too sure when the introduction was written. And I'm wondering, is it a new introduction for? There you go. No, it's the introduction is 2014. So I'm not too sure if the Black Lives Matter movement was on the go there. I'm taking that out of context anyway. It was just that paragraph in relation to the word for war as far as it's got stuff to do with Vietnam, and it's got a discussion of Joe Haldeman's Forever War, that kind of thing. It's a brief introduction, but it is kind of a true thing. War, even it affects everybody in a negative way. It's nothing, very little good that can come out of it, I suppose. McLeod sounds like being. All lives matter. Yeah, they do. That bloke is awful. Transhumanist. Who are we talking about? Yeah, I wasn't that impressed. I wasn't that impressed by the book. And Ronaldo Animal and with the WEF. Well, again, you'll need World Economic Forum. Have to do some real work. See you all later. No worries, Keith. Thank you. We'll be wrapping up shortly anyway in a wee minute. Thanks very much for joining us, Keith. Take it easy. World Economic Best with good sauce. Transhumanism, crosshumanism. It looked like how to put it. I didn't read a single new idea in it, and I thought it was simply presenting. It's almost as if somebody had scarred a whole bunch of old 2000 ADs and gone, there you go. But we have stuff like this from before, I suppose, and World Economic Forums and all of these things. Club of Rome have a bunch of these reports here. Some of them are kind of an influence on the environmental movement, etc., and all that kind of stuff. If you have a wee look at the June videos, guys, on chapter 4, the second video, I think, covers a lot of that kind of stuff. Even things like the computer models they were coming up with back in the day, and they're absolutely rubbish. To be honest with you, you can have a wee look at some of these things. And yeah, we have a bunch of photos in there. Yuval Noah Harari, that's the chap. Yeah, I was not impressed by the book. And if that's what the state of the art of futurism is, then he's about 10 years behind 2000 AD. It's I suppose looking at certain trends that are out there and trying to predict where they're going to go. Prediction, as we know, is death. Excuse me, but Just a question. Do you ever listen to C-1 or Denison X minus even? I've no idea what they are, to be honest with you. um, I'm quite a sort of provincial. I'm in the colonies here, Rolando. Uh, uh, trash. I misread it as trash. Very good. Check YouTube for how to survive the 21st century. Davos. Oh dear. How to survive it? I'm not going to survive it. I don't know about you guys, but if I'm going to survive the 21st century, I'd be very, very old, I think. Oh, it's a radio program. Thank you, Rolando. I haven't actually, but we had a few things. I'm always open to suggestions. Thank you very much. I will have a wee nosy if it's kind of sci-fi or science fiction or science even related. C-1 or Denison X. Denison. Is that Denison 10? X minus even. X minus even. Denison X minus. Mr. Check YouTube for how to survive the 21st century Davos 2020. Is that a good one? Is it? Radio program. Nice one, Rolando. Oh, we'll have a wee check that out. C-1. Is that C as in light speed? Let's see what that brings up. Oh, well, oh. Let's see. Oh no, I'll maybe have a wee look at that later. I can't seem to be. I'm not finding it there, but bouncing. But C-, is that what you call C-1 or Denison X minus even? This one X-1 on that and dimension X, right? Thank you. I'll write that down. X-1. I'll have a wee nosy. Yeah, always up for checking out new things. As I said, and the real problem for myself, Rolando's trying to do things for the station is just absolutely swamped, and always trying to get something read. And I'm doing a lot of rereading, to be honest with you. Oh, and if you're new to the channel, by the way, Rolando, I'd go with Tiger as a recommendation, and I'd say it's hard and soft if we want to go like that. But it's a very, very good book. Any other hard? I suppose it's really hard to think of what we mean as modern. Even and I'm just thinking with Ian Banks's passing, and it's it's not that long ago, and even with Arthur C. Clarke, only 2008. It's I suppose I'm growing up in the 70s, reading a lot of this stuff, sort of in my first decade and my second decade, if you see what I mean. But it's the hard soft science fiction one. I think is it's one of those ones that I think either academics created it or but like the white savior thing, or obviously created by a journalist, wasn't it? But it's I find it hard to. It would have. I don't know. Just find it very hard to consider a science fiction book that is unscientific in any way, if you know what I mean. And if I would think of it as a level of technology, maybe, and I don't know, almost to the point of hard science fiction. I'd say probably, if I'm thinking of certain things, would probably lose a lot of its literary qualities, I think. And it's one of those malaises that was sort of identified, even with the new wave, as much as we talk about the stylizations of the new wave, and after the golden age of science fiction, how they're wanting to drive this thing forward, come up with all these new. But as much as they've got all these new techniques and styles and wonderful ideas, they don't have the new ideas. That's their problem. You kind of get the cyber. We chat about the cyberpunk kind of explosion in the early 1980s, late 70s. If you're with Judge Dredd in 2000 AD, but 1980s otherwise. And we were just talking about again the video I have up recently, Tiger, the massive influence of that book from the 50s on this. And I tend to see the most influential science fiction for a long time in terms of cinema and TV has been from the 50s or 60s. And we haven't seen really an awful lot of our, I suppose maybe the modern period to me begins in the 80s. And we get these big epic sweeping science fiction stories like the Hyperion Cantos, which I would say is reasonably, if we're calling it hard sci-fi, but See, everything that's something hard about it, there's something soft about it, I think, you know. Hmm. But yeah, that book by what was it, Deus, Homo Deus, God the Man, wasn't that it? One of my students bought me that by accident, thinking it meant something else. Um, hmm, I don't know what she thought it meant. The same, but there you go. So I had a wee read through it, and I was just—it's not that impressive, I have to say. But in terms of when the original statement from that, I suppose the original discussion of that came from oh, I'm appalling with names. What was the gentleman that has the? I've subscribed to his channel, SFIA with Isaac Arthur. Isaac Arthur's hard set. Yeah, I'd say he's a futurist. Um, and the only thing with him is I think he's looking a lot further ahead um, than really most futurists would. I think when you look that far ahead, I suppose you know. It tends to fall into the realms of science fiction. Um, but yeah, I'd say in terms of being a futurist at the minute, I'd say that the hard part of being a futurist is that we're in a kind of absolute. Off with me as always. A pleasure to chat. Have a blast, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us, Rolando. Take it easy and look after yourself. Oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Yeah, the problem with futurism is that at the minute things are looking pretty bleak, and we have, I suppose, enough of the environment, all of the disasters that science fiction has been warning us about. We seem to be getting presented with quite a few of them at the minute, with pandemics, with potential global war, possibly nuclear war. We've got all sorts of things going on, and it's generally, I'd say, in terms of futurism, for the benefit mankind isn't looking good at the minute. Our future's not looking bright. It's future's so bright I've got to wear shades, that kind of thing. Kim Stanley Robinson was really on point. Now I'd had a wee chat, D, not too long back, and I had to apologise to whoever was talking to me about it because I'd read them ages ago. At least I'm pretty sure I had, and I can't remember a damn thing about Kim Stanley Robinson's excuse me, Mars trilogy. I know there is a few other books. I think I have another book, possibly is it something to do with Antarctic, by him downstairs, and I haven't read it. So you'd actually, I don't know who was talking to me about it the other day, but I would consider that pretty hard science fiction. In terms of yeah, thank you for that. Actually, if I had to pick a hard sci-fi writer, I'd go with the Mars trilogy. That's the one that would pop into my head. Yeah, really on point. The Martian Chronicles is I suppose we were having a wee chat about that earlier. That yeah, it's a very good. Goodness gracious, that's making me want to read that again as well. But that was the TV show we were talking about, the 3-part TV show that appeared in 1980. Really, really good. I don't know. A lot of our sci-fi is very far ahead. It's the social stuff that tends to be kind of more about now, I suppose. Yes, he calls himself a futurist, but it's science guessing what could be. Yeah, I mean that's it. It's not just Otherwise it's divination, isn't it, or some form of mancy, if you know what I mean. But yeah, no, it's about futurism as supposedly understanding where we're at exactly now, looking at all the technologies that we have, and what's going to happen, where is it going to take us, that kind of thing, I suppose. But yeah, no, that's what I'd see. Otherwise, I'd call him a science fiction guy. But he's really attempting to approach what's possibilities of the future and how we might go about it and see how we would get there. So yeah, science guessing what could be, absolutely. And it's not something that's done accurately very often, I suppose. Sorry, bear with me a second. And I suppose if we're thinking about it, sorry about that. If we're thinking about it, I'm trying to remember who said it about H.G. Wells, but H.G. Wells was considered as it's something to do with completely different than other writers working in a similar mode, and he probably didn't think about what he did as prediction. But if you look at his books and look what happened, you go, wow. I mean, he's the closest, possibly the closest. If you could ever describe anybody as a prophet, it would be H.G. Wells. Because almost every, it's a bit like false prophets and oxymoron, if you see it. But no other prophet I've ever heard of has got anything right, if you see what I mean. And it's not prophecy at all. It's, as you say, Brad, it's science having a guess. It's extrapolation. Extrapolation of the future possibilities from current trends. And I suppose in terms of futurism, it's taking the now and looking forward, where science fiction is often fundamentally about looking at now, the world we live in. And if you look at the content, for example, a lot of new science fiction, well, it's a comment on society, isn't it? And I don't mean the books. I mean, take a look at TV and the movies. It's a lot of doom and gloom stuff, isn't it? It's a lot of how many post-apocalypses can we have? And it seems to be that that's almost in the general consciousness of people creating science fiction at the minute, and it's been there before. To be honest with you, as a kid growing up in the 70s and into the 80s, we got to see an awful lot of these cheap kind of, not cheap, but sort of low budget post-apocalypse movies. Some of them great, and some of them not so good. But what is it? Is it James Coburn says in Cross of Iron, a man is generally what he feels himself to be. There we go. But yeah, so listen, folks, I'll tell you what, we'll just start wrapping up, I suppose. It was just pop on to have a wee chat because we hadn't been too well for the last couple of, had kind of done my throat and hadn't got much sleep and had been working long nights and stuff trying to do a video and ended up just kind of zonking out. So I do apologize. And just like to say thanks very much for all joining me again tonight. So we had a wee chat about William Hurt passing away and his role as leader of the treaties. And I suppose I just mentioned a few of the science fiction things that he was in, but we could have had a look at them in a wee bit more detail. But as always, it's just about a little bit of a chat and a bit of the crack, as they say here, in terms of finding out a wee bit about sci-fi and what you guys like, and maybe spreading a bit of the knowledge and the love of the subject. So there we go. It's been good fun as always, folks, and I'm going to sign off for tonight. And we'll see you on Sunday if you'd like to join me for the June Book Club at 9 o'clock GMTV. GMTV. I keep doing that. GMT. Greenwich Mean Time. GMTV is a TV channel here. It's not a very good one. So 9 p.m. GMT on Sunday as always. So thanks very much, folks, and take it easy. No matter where you are, look after yourselves and be careful. And we'll see you soon. All the very best, and thanks for joining me. Good night now. Bye-bye.